Hello everyone, this is Peter Bom for Australian Motorcycle News with an update from the MotoGP race that was in Austria today, the Sunday. What happened? I hope and I assume you have seen the race. It was an interesting race. I have the results here. I have a couple of pictures that explain something. We're not going to do the whole results. I take just a couple of names that are mentioned a notion. Of course, Marc Marquez was winning. Not many people doubted about that. The way he was winning was very, very convincing, very, very easy. What I found interesting is the way he decided to overtake Marco Bezzecchi. And what I like a lot, actually, we have a picture here showing Marco Bezzecchi in the last part of the race where he is defending against Fermin Aldeguer, who eventually overtakes him for second place. What I liked a lot from Marco Bezzecchi, he was leading the race from the beginning on. Marc was quickly second. Marc was trying to go with Marco, tried to overtake him, but he did a couple of laps too close behind the Aprilia, and then your front tire gets hot, pressure goes up, you lose the feeling. So Marc decided to drop back a little bit from Marco Bezzecchi until just after half the race or something. Then he made a move, a very clean outbraking move, but he was surprised, and I'm positively surprised, that Bezzecchi immediately within 3 corners came back on Marc, put it on the inside in the first fast left-hander, which is a bit of a scary one because you arrive there with a cold front tire. He immediately went back underneath him. Okay, that's the spirit that I like. Even if you don't have the pace probably from the guy overtakes you, you should always bring him into the fight, because maybe he makes mistakes, whatever. You know, just don't roll over. So the next thing Marc did is make sure the last corner onto the start-finish straight, he had a super good exit with his superior Ducati power and was really close to Marco Bezzecchi, and in the braking phase he went on his inside and then opened the brake again to make sure he stays level with him. So he didn't really outbrake him and then go in front of him into the corner. Instead, he outbraked him and then stay on his inside. You could really see him opening the brake pressure and the bike came up in the front. By doing that and going into a tight right-hander, he forces Marco Bezzecchi to either close a lot or go off track. It's not a dirty move, it's a move that makes sure when you execute it, after the corner, you immediately have half a second, maybe a second, put between you and the guy. And that's what Marc did, but then in the end he just also rode away. Marco didn't really have the pace of Marc Marquez, but it was still a nice move. Let's go to another picture that says something. We had Enea Bastianini. He was already good in Brno. He's very, very disappointing so far this year with the KTM. KTM is struggling a little bit, but also Enea is clearly struggling to adapt his riding style from the Ducati to the KTM. Well, he was very lucky today here, because this KTM on this track, especially with the tires that Michelin brought here, allowed him to do exactly what you see here. And what you see here is a track that goes in this direction, and his bike is pointing in this direction, means he goes sideways into the corner. He loves to do that. A couple of times a year this is good, it works, but most of the race it's not working. It's either forcing you to make a lot of mistakes or you wear out your rear tire too much. Here it worked, and so Enea was in a sweet place. He finished in P6, but could have finished just as good third or maybe even second, because all his laps were really fast, but like yesterday, he makes too many little silly mistakes, Enea Bastianini. But it's good to see him back at the KTM. We had a lot of KTMs. We had 3 KTMs in the top 7, so that's a really good, strong sign from them. Who were not strong were the Yamahas. Yesterday we had the last 3 places with the Yamahas, and then Fabio was P10 or 11. Today was worse. You think it can't get worse? It can get worse. All 4 Yamaha riders are the last 4 in the ranking. Total disaster for everything Yamaha has done here. So we know the Yamaha don't have a good weapon for a stop-and-go drag race track, but still their position in the group, if it's your shit track, you finish 7 or 6, you know, with your top rider. But finishing that 4 with the last 4 means they really can't. They have actually backpedaled. They are going backwards in development compared to 1 year ago, which is unbelievable, difficult situation for Yamaha. I don't know why it's so bad with them, so I'm getting a little bit worried for the future of Yamaha, but let's quickly see what next week brings. But here in Red Bull Ring, it was a full disaster, everything Yamaha related. A funny picture a little bit from the beginning of the race, where we have Pedro Acosta, who in the end finished 4th, yesterday 3rd, today 4th. is leading Fermin Aldeguer. And as you can see, Fermin Aldeguer has his outside foot off the pack, which means you're about to crash. It's not like I'm sure I leave the ship, but it means I'm losing the front and I'm digging my inside knee harder and more into the tarmac, and in order to do that I even take off my outside pack. That's what this picture says. I didn't notice it in the television. He didn't lose a place, he just quickly had to do a correction on a very low speed corner here actually. It's a bit earlier in the race because we have also Jorge Martin still there and Zarco, even Fabio Quartararo who in the end finished completely last. So that's the thing of this picture. We need to speak about Pecco Bagnaia, because the guy that was supposed to fight for the World Championship with Marc Marquez learned in the first half of the season that he can do nothing against Marc, and he also can do nothing against Marc's brother, who is on last year's Ducati, which is still a better bike. But after the summer break, to recharge yourself, going to a track where he won 3 years in a row, both the sprint and the main race, and Marc never won before, he and everybody else was expecting more from Pecco Bagnaia, to be closer to Marc Marquez. Well, he was not. He was just not. Couldn't do anything. Yesterday in the sprint he went sideways at the start and then immediately the rear tire was finished. Strange, but can happen. He was just unlucky with the performance of that tire. Today in the race he had a good start, fighting a little bit up the front, then couldn't do the lap times from the guys in the front, so came to ride alone and dropped more and more and more in the lap times. It's not even a shadow of the former Pecco Bagnaia, so he is in a dark place. Who else we need to speak about? Maybe Joan Mir with the Honda in P6, because a Honda in P6 usually it's Zarco, but this time it's not Zarco. It's not really working very well this weekend for him, but Mir did something not Mir-like. He didn't crash and he wasn't forced into a crash by somebody else, which happens a lot with Joan Mir. He crashes himself or he is involved in an accident. When not, on a track like this, you still can do something with a Honda. That was it from the MotoGP race, but we had some Aussie riders, Joe Kelso and Jacob Rulstone in the Moto3. They finished more or less where they started yesterday, P12 and P14, which means they didn't find any improvements overnight from yesterday to today. But that is something interesting. They finished 12 and 14, but within 5 seconds of the winner. Means they were really in the group. They were close. They could see almost the guys that were winning the race. It means they are just looking for very small improvements to immediately make up a lot of places. And I mean, that's the same for everybody in Moto3, but I feel sorry for the guys finishing 12 and 14, but almost being able to see the race. But they didn't really have the lap time, because it's not like at some point they were 3 and 4 and then had a mistake. No. They were quickly after the start, they were there, and that was just all they could do for the moment. We had Senna Agius in P6 in qualifying yesterday in the Moto2, so high hopes on him. Well, his race was very short. It was the exit of turn 2 when he was crashing. I don't think he hurt himself, and I'm not sure if it was his own crash. I mean, exiting turn 2 in Moto2 is chaos, and he was just one of the victims over there. That was it from today's race. Don't go on a holiday. Stay tuned, because next week we're going to Hungary, to the Balaton Ring. A very strange track. MotoGP haven't even tested there. Some riders went testing there with Superstock bikes. Superbike had an event 1 month ago there, Superbike races. No straights, they don't even reach 6th gear. A lot of times on the brake, a lot of time slow speed corners with a lot of banking. So it's going to be an entertaining, strange race. Maybe the track is not really up to standards from MotoGP, but it still means it's the same for everybody, and probably it gives us a bit of a different results in qualifying and races. So hope to explain that to you next week. If you like it, tune in. See you next week, Friday. Bye everyone.